Next, let's talk about renewable energy generation in footprinting. Let's look at an example here where Formula Pharma's management decided to install solar panels on two of their US-based facilities in Texas. The solar panels supply 90% of the electricity usage at these facilities, so Formula Pharma had to purchase an additional 10,000 kilowatt hours of electricity from the grid to supplement their on-site usage. In addition to this, they also purchased renewable energy certificates, or RECs, for one of their offices in Boulder, Colorado. Now that we know this, let's see how Formula Pharma should account for these considerations in their footprint in the next slide. Because Formula Pharma owns and operates the solar panels and generates electricity directly on site, these emissions are reported in Scope 1. However, since this is renewable energy, the related emissions are zero. Any additional electricity purchased from the grid is reported in Scope 2 on a gross basis. For Formula Pharma, this would be the additional 10,000 kilowatt hours of electricity purchased in 2024. Formula Pharma will have to report both the market-based and location-based GHG emissions using the appropriate emission factors. So, for the two facilities in Austin, Texas, using on-site solar generation, the emission factor is zero because there are no emissions associated with the generation of renewable energy at these sites. Now, let's see how accounting for renewables looks like in Scope 2 on the next slide. In Scope 2, because these locations still need to purchase 10,000 kilowatt hours of electricity, or about 5,000 each, the sites still have some emissions, as you can see calculated here. Now, let's talk about renewable energy certificates, or RECs. Formula Pharma purchased about 280,000 kilowatt hours of grid-supplied electricity for its offices in Boulder and offset the GHG emissions by purchasing RECs. In this example, these GHG emissions should be reported in Scope 2. So, Formula Pharma will use a zero emission factor for the market-based method calculations and a regional emission factor for their location-based calculations. We can see what this would look like on the next slide. Because the Boulder offices have RECs offsetting their emissions, you can see that the market-based emission factor is set to zero. But it is important to note that location-based still shows emissions, as we are only able to report renewable energy in market-based calculations. Next, we will be discussing how to account for emissions from natural gas.